City Hall tonight.
Today, New York is back up and running thanks to the city workers who worked long shifts.
Mayor Mamdani updated New Yorkers on the city's cleanup efforts after the powerful winter storm dumped nearly 2 feet of snow across the 5 boroughs. Tonight, President Trump is expected to deliver his first State of the Union address since returning to the White House. We'll bring you a preview from Washington, D.C., and I'll talk more about what to look out for with former White House speechwriter Michael Waldman. Also tonight, State Senator Jessica Ramos will join me from Albany to talk about her re-election campaign. And finally,
David and I started this because we wanted to inspire people.
A new podcast debuted today, hosted by 2 familiar faces in city politics, Sheena Wright and David Banks. They'll join me later tonight to talk about their podcast, The Beacon and Blueprint. For the best news, debate, and analysis of New York politics, join us inside City Hall. Good evening and welcome to Inside City Hall for Tuesday, February 24th, 2026. I'm Bobby Kuza in for Errol Lewis. Mayor Mamdani took some heat a day after the biggest snowstorm to hit New York in a decade, peppered with questions about NYPD officers who were pelted with snowballs. And the mayor was also pressed about snow clearing efforts in particularly hard-hit areas of Staten Island. Our Dan Rivoli joins me now with tonight's top story. Good evening, Dan.
Good evening, Bobby. So while the NYPD was investigating this case of NYPD officers being hit with snowballs, Mayor Mamdani tried a lighthearted quip to avoid overly criticizing those seen in a viral video pelting these officers with snowballs in Washington Square Park on Monday.
Look, I've seen the videos of this snowball fight. I think that it was a snowball fight.
To Mayor Mamdani, these viral videos showing NYPD officers relentlessly hit with snowballs while responding to a disorderly conduct call were just kids in a snowball fight in Washington Square Park. Still, he added, no one should throw a snowball at a police officer.
The only person in our city's workforce who deserves to be treated with a snowball is me.
While Mayor Mamdani had a lighthearted response, Governor Kathy Hochul, NYPD leadership, and police unions are taking it much more seriously. On social media, Governor Hochul said throwing things at police officers is never acceptable. Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch called it disgraceful and criminal. Police Union Chief Patrick Hendry found Mayor Mamdani's characterization of kids in a snowball fight to be a failure of leadership, calling it an assault by adults throwing chunks of ice and rock. He wants criminal charges. The mayor disagrees.
So I've seen videos of kids throwing snowballs at members of the NYPD in Washington Square Park.
The NYPD opened an investigation into the snowball pelting that injured at least 2 officers who reported lacerations to the face. The NYPD is requesting information about the identities of these 2 men for the alleged assault.
So why is it okay for the sitting mayor, the guy that's in charge of the police department, to basically say that he thought this was no big deal in the midst of an investigation? I thought his comments were way inappropriate, way off base.
City Councilman Frank Morano, a Republican from Staten Island, also said the city failed to frequently plow in the area hit with the most snow, his home borough.
The storm is almost 24 hours over. There's still not blacktop here. Okay.
Morano, here in Arden Heights, said he thought Manhattanites fared much better.
It was the difference between East and West Berlin. In one community, it was thriving and normal and operational. In another community, Staten Island, we were paralyzed by snow.
And earlier, Mayor Mamdani and the sanitation chief said that more equipment and personnel will be coming to Staten Island to help residents there dig out of the snow. Bobby.
So, Dan, I noticed at the news conference, you pressed the mayor because he said these were kids throwing snowballs, right? And it seems pretty clear from the video, these are certainly not small kids. At the very least, they are older kids or adults who are involved.
Right. I asked him, do you know for sure these are kids or could they be adults? And he said, well, just looking from the video, they look like kids. But as you pointed out, They are either young adults or in their late teens, and even the NYPD releasing those requests for media attention on those two males. They said approximately the ages are 18 to 20. This wasn't like 6-year-olds trying to stick it to Officer Krupke. I mean, as you could see, the level of being pelted by the snowballs, it was a lot. It was not simply a kid's snowball fight on the video.
All right, Dan Rivoli, thank you for that report. When Mayor Mamdani suggested the city could raise property taxes to raise revenue last week, it immediately sparked an outcry from both allies and opponents. It also once again highlighted the long-standing inequities in the city's property tax system. Our Courtney Gross takes a closer look in this report.
Pierre Benjamin grew up in Southeast Queens, and he bought this home here in Laurelton in 2023.
I literally put up this wall on my own, that wall on my own, this wall on my own.
He currently rents it out to make ends meet.
This is not as pretty as upstairs.
With the hope of moving into a soon-to-be renovated basement at some point. It's unclear when. Expenses keep climbing.
I bought my tax bill so you can see it. I won't show the address. Estimated property tax, $7,000. It's over $7,000. $7,243.89.
Property taxes being one of them.
We have to be really creative so that homeowners aren't constantly exploited to pay for the debts of the city.
This is one neighborhood that experts say may be disproportionately taxed compared to other wealthier areas of the city, all going back to a complicated property tax system designed in the 1980s.
There's a half a dozen people in New York City that understand that, and that's the point. You can't fix this system and leave it the way it is.
Mark Shaw led a property tax reform commission during Bill de Blasio's administration, which had proposed overhauling the system. As part of Mayor Mamdani's threat to increase property taxes, he too is talking about changing the system.
We have a broken property tax system in this city. We have one that can barely stand up in court. And my goal is to reform that system.
There are many issues. For one, property tax assessment increases are capped for 1, 2, and 3 family homes at 6% a year, or a cumulative of 20% over 5 years. Because of this assessment cap, homes in certain neighborhoods can have their market values skyrocket quickly, but the property taxes increase at a much slower rate, meaning some homeowners can get a pretty good deal if their neighborhood and home quickly climbed in value. So take a $2.7 million home for sale in Bedford-Stuyvesant. That annual property tax bill is just over $3,300. Head over to Hollis, Queens. A much smaller home in a much less expensive neighborhood is for sale at under $900,000. The property tax bill? More than $5,000, almost double the bill of a home worth potentially 3 times as much.
But it set up growth caps that caused it to become more inequitable over the years. So the system that got set up was a partial fix, but the truth of the matter is that the way it works, the years since 1981, the system has gotten much worse.
The way condos are taxed also creates inequities, said Shaw. When calculating taxes for co-ops and condos, the city treats them like rental buildings and compares them to nearby rental units to calculate their value. So a $1.5 million condo can be compared to a rent-stabilized unit that goes for $1,800 a month, thus reducing the property assessment and someone's tax bill.
And this calculation doesn't make sense.
Homeowners in Southeast Queens like Benjamin have long criticized this system. A potential property tax hike on top of it, they say, is intolerable.
Fact of the matter is there's $12 billion missing, and now we have to pay for it. That's not fair.
Courtney Gross, New York 1.
It is time now for a break. Coming up, a growing number of New York's congressional representatives are skipping President Trump's State of the Union address tonight. We will bring you a report from Capitol Hill next. Stay with us.
Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day. With in-depth coverage of the day's news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Tomorrow, some morning sunshine possible. Clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on One. Weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum and Xfinity customers.
The storm came through with 120-mile-an-hour winds through our neighborhood. My daughter had to evacuate to our house while we were out of town. Sure enough, power goes out. When the generator kicked back on, it, of course, powered the Spectrum modem. She didn't lose service, and we didn't lose connectivity with her through the entire storm. We both breathed a sigh of relief. To have her feel safe and us feel reassured that she was okay was priceless.
Real customers, real reliability. To get the most reliable internet, visit spectrum.com/stay connected.
I'm Sandra, this is Jorge, and we were adopted in 2019. I remember when they first came to us, Michael was already a teenager. The whole cliche of they're so lucky to have you guys, and it's the other way around. They have changed our family for the better. They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
Going into the 2026 election, local races will determine national policy, from the economy to public safety. From the governor's race to the balance of power in Washington, this year's ballot has no shortage of important choices. Let Spectrum News New York One be your resource for balanced, up-to-date coverage and analysis, so you can know what the issues are and how they impact your community. Always dedicated, always local, always on. Decision 2026 on Spectrum News New York One.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. Tonight, President Trump will deliver the first State of the Union address of his second term. He'll address a divided Congress and lay out his priorities for the busy midterm election year. Our Shannon Ryan joins us live from inside the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C. And Shannon, some news breaking just in the past hour or so that Democratic Whip Catherine Clark will not attend tonight in protest. What's the latest there?
Bobby, it truly is extraordinary and certainly intended to send a strong message from Democratic leadership to President Donald Trump. Now, we've known for quite some time now that dozens of Democratic lawmakers plan to skip out on his speech this evening in protest. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries has said that they should either attend in silent defiance, essentially asking them, don't come if you're going to act out, or skip out entirely. Here's what he told us earlier today.
It's up to every individual member to make the decision that makes the most sense for their constituents. But Mike Johnson and House Republicans are not in a position to lecture anyone about decorum. Not with this president, who's completely and totally out of control.
And Bobby, we've been able to confirm at least 3 New York lawmakers are not going as a form of protest. So Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Congressman Jerry Nadler, and Congressman Dan Goldman. Now, Goldman is going to an alternative demonstration. The other two, Ocasio-Cortez and Nadler, tell me they plan to stay home. Now, what's interesting about Goldman is he still has a guest that's attending. We met up with him earlier today. His guest is actually a priest in New York City who's been helping him help ICE detainees. Take a listen.
What was most important for me was to invite and be here with Father Fabian, who has been an instrumental partner for my office and just for New York City in helping immigrant families navigate what is a treacherous system right now.
And Bobby, you can see that ICE out sticker that Goldman has been wearing around Capitol Hill today. And to sort of flip-flop things, Congressman Gregory Meeks, he tells me that he plans to attend the president's speech this evening, but that he won't bring a guest. He claims that he couldn't find anybody who wanted to go with him.
No one requested a ticket. I then reached out to some folks to see if they would be willing to come. And they said the only thing they would do with the ticket is rip it up.
And now, as far as Republicans go, they've been incredibly dismissive of this rhetoric from Democrats. Earlier today, we spoke with Hudson Valley Congressman Mike Lawler. Here's what he had to say.
You know, many of my Democratic colleagues talk about decorum, and they talk about the president and say that they don't like his behavior. They're engaged in petty partisan politics.
And Bobby, we've got about an hour and 45 minutes until the State of the Union is slated to begin. So I'm going to get back to work and send it back to you in the studio.
All right, Shannon, thank you so much for that report from Washington, D.C. It is time now for a break. Coming up, I'll be joined by State Senator Jessica Ramos. Stay with us.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
There's nothing quite like the feeling of going to the theater. Onstage celebrates that excitement every week by taking you behind the scenes with the latest news and in-depth interviews of the hottest shows on and off Broadway. So grab a seat, because this is a show you won't want to miss. Join us every Saturday and Sunday at 7:30 p.m. for Onstage.
Onstage is presented by your Tri-State Cadillac dealers. Discover which Cadillac is right for you and elevate your journey.
I had a heart attack about 1.5 years ago, and so now I have an ICD implant that needs stable and reliable internet to give routine checks and daily reports to my cardiologist. When my cardiologist told me he wasn't getting the information he needed, me and my fiance looked into better internet providers, and we found Spectrum. As soon as we switched, he said he saw every daily report, every routine check that they did. That made us feel like we were back in control of my life.
Real customers, real reliability. To get the most reliable internet, visit Spectrum.com.
Mom was always organized, but she started forgetting to pay her bills on time.
And she'd buy the same gifts over and over.
Telling the girls about my Alzheimer's diagnosis was really hard. At first, we had our cries, but then we were like, okay, let's make a plan.
Early detection gave us time to adapt together.
It's so important for you to think about what you can do and making the most of what you have.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
From my time growing up in Queens watching New York 1 to my time reporting here, I've seen how quickly a story can change. At News All Day, we bring you the news as it's happening, from around the boroughs to local government to your neighborhood, because our city never stops moving.
Hi, I'm Shannon Ferry with the day's developing stories. But first,
stay up to date and informed with News All Day, weekdays from noon to 4.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall, where we are turning to a competitive state Senate race in Queens. That's where the incumbent, Jessica Ramos, is looking to fend off a primary challenge from fellow Democrat Assemblywoman Jessica Gonzalez Rojas. Ramos has been representing the Queens District since 2019. It covers all or parts of Corona, Elmhurst, East Elmhurst, and Jackson Heights. As you might remember, Ramos made headlines last year after ending her campaign for mayor and backing former Governor Andrew Cuomo for the job. Since then, she has lost some support from allies in her re-election bid, including from the state's Working Families Party. And she joins me now from our Albany bureau to talk more about her re-election campaign. Welcome back to the program. Thank you for joining us, Senator.
Thanks for having me, Bobby.
So, let me start there. I mentioned the Working Families Party. There have been others, a couple of major unions, as well as the Queens Democratic Organization, who are not supporting you in your re-election bid and have thrown their support to your opponent. I wonder if you feel betrayed or what you think is going on there.
Well, the Queens County Democratic Organization has chosen to stay out of the race. They have not made an endorsement, and I respect that. I respect a lot of the accountability that's happening on both sides, whether it's any endorsements or whether it's the casino that is now going to be built in my district, which I voted against. But everyone in my district knows that I'm their senator, no one else's, and I am not done fighting for their families and for mine. I always have. I'm running on a very strong record of passing well over 150 bills. I have been fighting for the affordability in our district the entire tenure here in the state Senate. I've been a very productive chair of the Labor Committee and count on dozens of endorsements from lots of labor unions who represent workers that live and work in my district.
You mentioned the casino, Metropolitan Park Casino by Citi Field. You're a steadfast opponent of the casino project. Is that something that is going to be an issue in the campaign, or is it sort of moot now that the project has been approved?
Well, I always wanted it to be well known across the district that this was a possibility, but it has now been voted on last session when the state alienated land for it, and I have been opposed to that site being used for that purpose because of the environmental implications, because gambling is conducive to addictions in our neighborhood, and because I think there's better economic development that we could generate for our district that does not involve a casino.
I mentioned your opponent, Assemblywoman Jessica Gonzalez Rojas. What are some of the differences between you and your opponent? What sort of distinction do you draw for the voters?
Well, the casino vote is the biggest one. I am the only local elected official who voted against the casino. Everyone, including my opponent, voted for it, despite their affiliations to lots of progressive organizations. And in fact, I have expressed my disappointment that so many of these organizations failed to come out to fight against a billionaire, and not just any billionaire, but one that has been held accountable by the Securities and Exchange Commission and has paid one of the highest violations in the history of our country. I think that's a very serious conversation that needs to be had when we're fighting the oligarchy. I've also been much more proactive in putting money in people's pockets. I'm the last person to raise the minimum wage in New York State and tie it to inflation. I secured $2.1 billion for my neighbors and all New Yorkers who were excluded for unemployment insurance during the pandemic. I've expanded access to child care and hoping that now we can build universal child care on top of that. I have been fighting wage theft, which is pervasive in my community and across the state to the tune of $3 billion. So there's a lot that I can point to in my time here. I have never stopped fighting. I think I've just begun, and I am very happy to be able to be held on this record, and am going to be talking to my neighbors and making sure that they stay engaged in the work that we've been able to do for them here in Albany.
And Senator, no surprise, or no secret, I should say, that some of the reason that you have lost allies is disenchantment, I guess you could call it, with the fact that you endorsed former Governor Andrew Cuomo in the mayoral primary last year. I wonder now, with the benefit of hindsight, if you have any regrets about that.
Well, look, Andrew Cuomo lost the mayoral election. We now have Mayor Zohran Mamdani. I will be working with that administration just like I worked with the previous one. I didn't support Eric Adams, but he won that election. And I was able to work with that administration where we had common ground, certainly around a lot of the housing initiatives and economic development corporation initiatives that were taking place in and near my district. And so I'm going to continue to protect and fight for the interests of my neighbors. I'm the senator for working class people. I am a working class senator, and I'm going to continue to fight for the issues that I always have, no matter who's at the helm of an administration. My job as a state senator is to work with whoever is in power and be able to advance real material change that my neighbors can feel.
Just a few seconds left, but I wonder how you would assess the job that Mayor Mamdani has done so far in these first couple months.
Well, it's still very early. I mean, you know, February's coming to an end. It's got to be tough with 2 major snowstorms. And I think there's still a lot of transition happening. And, you know, there's concern over some things. And I'm really hoping that here in Albany, we do what we need to do in the legislature in order to tax the rich. That has always been a priority for me. I carry a bill to tax 135 people, the billionaires of New York State. They have a lot of unrealized capital gains that go untaxed. By my math, we would generate $25 billion within the first year if we were to make that law. And that, within and of itself, could help us fund universal child care, not just for New York City, but the entire state. So there's conversations happening right now while we're negotiating the budget here. And I'm confident that between that and my jobs and housing bill, because I'm really focused on building more affordable housing right now in my district and in this budget, that we're going to be able to make our case to the governor, and hopefully the final budget addresses these issues and we can deliver some big wins for our neighbors back home.
Very busy budget season and campaign season ahead for you.
Indeed.
State Senator Jessica Ramos, thank you so much for spending some time with us.
Of course, thanks for having me.
All right, it is time now for a break. Coming up, we will be joined by former schools chancellor David Banks and former First Deputy Mayor Sheena Wright, who will be here to talk about their new podcast, The Beacon and Blueprint, and much more. Stay with us.
My time at New York One has shown me that in the city that never sleeps, the news never stops. So as the day winds down, turn to the rush hour.
Good afternoon, I'm Monica Burke.
To catch up on the stories that matter across the 5 boroughs, with in-depth interviews from the city's newsmakers, plus the latest forecast. Catching you up with today, preparing you for tomorrow. Right here on the Rush Hour. Weekdays from 4 to 7 p.m.
The Nanakuli Valley is the largest Hawaiian community in the state of Hawaii. Because of Spectrum and their investment, Alulike is a place that people can come and access technology. Many of our participants don't have computers at home. We have programs that help students, that help adults get employment. Spectrum gives us the tools to help more people get there.
I'm Chris Jakovic. I served in the United States Air Force and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is, my job is people, everyone is my business. But unfortunately in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jakovic, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. My service never stops.
At Spectrum Noticias, we recognize that our New York City community is vibrant and diverse.
Spectrum Noticias delivers balanced coverage of the stories that matter in our communities and across the country.
Our journalists are based in the neighborhoods we cover, ensuring you get in-depth reporting on what's happening in the places we call home.
So join us at Spectrum Noticias. We're always on, always there for you.
Now available on your TV. Check your local listings. Also available on the Spectrum News app.
See, what's supposed to happen is you're supposed to come out of government after having been the chancellor of the city of New York and become the secretary of education. Supposed to go from being the deputy mayor of the city of New York to, you know, the head of the Ford Foundation, head of Congress, whatever. What he did was saddle you with a bunch of political and legal nonsense that had nothing to do with you, and hurt a whole cadre of black people that was supposed to emerge and help take us to another level. Put that aside.
That's another.
That's another.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. That was a snippet of the inaugural episode of a brand new podcast called The Beacon and Blueprint, hosted by my next guests, former schools chancellor David Banks and former First Deputy Mayor Sheena Wright, who were two of Mayor Adams' highest-ranking officials before departing the administration in 2024 amid the swirl of federal investigations. They also happen to be married. They tied the knot that same year, and they join me now to discuss the podcast, which is debuting today, what viewers and listeners can expect, and much more. David Banks and Sheena Wright, welcome back to the program. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Bobby.
Thank you, Bobby.
So I should mention, that was Kirsten John Foy, a civil rights activist in the podcast, who was telling you guys how you were done in by Mayor Eric Adams. We'll get to that. But I guess first, just tell me what the idea was behind the podcast, because you guys have been sort of out of the public eye for the last year plus, right?
Yeah.
So I would say that, David and I have been in public service. I mean, between us, it's about 70 years. He was a 40-year career, I was a 30-year career. And we really see this as a way to continue to be of service. The goal and objective of the podcast is really to inspire people, to educate them about key issues, and ultimately to activate them, to really give people tangible things to do, to be a part of our civic democracy, to make the kinds of changes that we need to make and that we've worked for our whole career.
And I think, Bobby, also, we've had so many people since we left office who said, we still need to hear your voice. We've both been leaders in our community for many, many years. And I think people were disappointed that they weren't hearing from us. This is a platform which gives us an opportunity to share our thoughts about what we think and how we see things happening around the country, around the city. But in addition to that, to be in conversation with lots of leaders who also have strong opinions, as you heard earlier from Reverend Kirsten John Foy, and so many others. And we do it at our home in Harlem, so it's not in a studio. It's like in a tradition of Harlem, we would have these salons, and you bring people over. And so I think our audience will have an opportunity to really hear us in these great conversations right in our own home.
Yeah, it's a good-looking podcast. So I got to ask you guys some questions, because people are wondering how things went down back in 2024. Around that time, your home was visited or raided, I guess some people might say, by federal investigators. I mean, what was your reaction to when that happened?
First of all, there was no raid. I would say that certainly David and I have never been accused of anything. We never did anything wrong. And people have a job to do. People have investigations to do. We have no idea, where that has landed. But we're good. I mean, we feel good about the work that we did for the city and the service that we performed. And like I said, we've not ever been accused of anything, and we haven't done anything.
Listen, nobody ever wants to have the FBI come to your house, right? They had a job to do. I think to some degree, we were kind of swept up in investigations that they were looking at lots of people. We had nothing to do with any of it. It's been a year and a half since it happened. We've never heard another word since. They never gave us our phones back, but what we understand is that that's not uncommon. People go years without even getting their phones back. But, it was a moment in time, and Sheena and I have continued to, we loved our time in city government, but in the grand scheme of things, it was a very short amount of time, given all that we have done throughout our entire careers in terms of trying to help the people of the city.
Well, of course, there were some serious repercussions. Both of you departed the administration, and Sheena Wright, you left the administration, I think, through not necessarily through your own choice. I mean, did you feel like you were pushed out?
No, not at all. I had really been in the administration almost, I feel like a year earlier. We did the transition, which was a heavy lift. And I'd already been planning my next steps, so I did not feel that way at all. These are hard jobs, and it's to think that somebody can do it for like 8 years, continuously, it's a lot. But I really do feel good about what we accomplished. Certainly, the work that we did around affordable housing. I'm particularly proud personally of the work that we did for MBE contracting. We passed a historic legislation to really make sure that the city invest in community hiring in terms of its procurement. And one of the biggest things I'm proud of is that we put $1.4 billion of wages into nonprofits who are on the front lines every single day. We got really a lot done, and certainly David had some major accomplishments as well.
Listen, I could not be more proud of the team that we had in place and some of the big accomplishments that we had. Probably the main thing was we laid out a vision, really, for what education should look like. We retrained all the teachers across the city around reading and literacy. That's probably the biggest legacy work that we engaged in. We also engaged with the business community and helping to make career connections with young people, particularly our older students, so that when they get out of school, they have a clear plan on, a career path, whether they go to college or they don't. And ultimately, I think the way we showed up as related to what was going on in the Middle East. And, I got called to testify before Congress. And we did that, and we were able to really speak very clearly to the work that we were doing in New York to help folks understand that we cannot have hate in our system. Anti-Semitism cannot stand. Islamophobia cannot stand. Racism cannot stand. And just shout out and kudos to all the great people in the New York City public school system who really rose to the occasion. I'm so proud of that work.
With everything that happened, I have to imagine it damaged your relationship with former Mayor Eric Adams. Are you guys still in contact?
I wouldn't say that. I mean, as I said, these are hard.
You wouldn't say it damaged the relationship, or you wouldn't say that you're still in contact?
No, I wouldn't say that there's any damage. I mean, these are hard jobs, and it was a very difficult time for a whole host of reasons. And I think one of the reasons that we wanted to do this podcast, there's so much narrative and attention and focus on this very small amount of time and this incident that is not reflective of our experience. It's not reflective of our contribution. It's not reflective of who we are. And so to really have a platform where we are continuing the work that we have been doing for decades in service and in conversation with people, and really to continue to help and inspire our community. And that was really one of the things that encouraged us to do this. And we're having a great time.
What do you think about the job that Mayor Mamdani is doing so far?
Listen, it's a tough job. Sheena's probably better prepared to really speak to that.
No, I mean, I think he's very inspirational and very clear. It's certainly in his priorities, and as you heard in the episode, I mean, I think that was one of the really amazing things. I think he's got a great team. Many of them were our teammates back in the previous administration. And, it's tough. He's got a tough road ahead. But he's got a great team, and I think I have a lot of faith in the civil servants in the city of New York that we're going to be good.
I remain very hopeful for him. One of the things I think that inspired me the most about his election was the amount of young people who got involved. You often hear that young people don't care about politics, they don't get involved. I think his campaign demonstrated otherwise, and I think that's the thing that keeps me most helpful. I will tell you, I have been disappointed that he did not select a black deputy mayor. And Mayor Adams, I think, put together the most diverse cabinet in the history of New York City. And every mayor in the last 50 years has had a black deputy mayor. I think it's important. I think it matters. I think representation matters.
Absolutely.
And the fact that he chose to do it otherwise, I heard him say in response to the question that he had a black chancellor. Chancellors don't impact what happens every day in City Hall. I was a black chancellor, so I know. And I played a very significant role with the administration. But it was Sheena and the other deputy mayors who really were calling the shots on what was happening on a day-to-day basis across a wide range of topics. As a chancellor, you're just running your agency, so it's not the same thing. And I would really hope that at some point he would reconsider that, because I think it does matter.
And it's important, I think, because if your issue is affordability, you've got to address the needs and concerns of black New Yorkers who are really at the crosshairs of affordability in this city.
We got to go, but I know you're watching the school system. Was it, they had a snow day on Monday. Was that the right call? We hadn't had a real snow day in 6 years.
No, I think it was the right call. I think they were very fortunate that the State Education Commissioner was able to grant them a waiver. Right. The reality is that you have to do 180 days. Yeah. And if you don't, you pay a fine of up to millions of dollars. Right. And unfortunately, most kids were away on vacation, teachers were away. Nobody has the devices in their hands to even call for a remote day. And so they were in a tough spot, and I think they did the best that they could. But we're really excited about this podcast. We hope that people tune in. The Beacon and the Blueprint.
Absolutely. All right, David Banks and Sheena Wright, thank you guys so much. And you can check out that podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also watch it on YouTube. It is time now for a break. Coming up, Ramadan is looking a lot different at City Hall this year under the city's first Muslim mayor. We will bring you a closer look at how next. Stay with us.
After 30 years of forecasting for New York, I've learned it takes a dedicated team to cover all the weather our city has to offer. As chief meteorologist at New York One, I'm honored to be able to help New Yorkers plan their day.
Morning, noon, or night, our team is here to bring you accurate forecasts you can count on, from severe weather updates to our Weather on the Ones. Watch the New York One weather experts with your Weather on the Ones on your TV and on the go with the Spectrum News app.
I moved from Dallas to Los Angeles all by myself. The order of things I wanted to set up was internet, water, then power. I needed to take a shower, but I really did need the internet for work and to watch my shows. That's kind of a crazy thing to admit in front of a camera. Pretend I didn't say that. I got to Spectrum. I was so relieved that I was getting the best bang for my buck. It was a huge weight taken off of my shoulders.
Real customers, real savings. To see how much you can save, visit spectrum.com/save.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. 2 milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
The sad reality is fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kitchen now.
My father was a New York City firefighter. My mission, like his, is to serve New Yorkers in a city that doesn't stop when the sun goes down. Being with New York One since the beginning, I'm now honored to join you even earlier each weeknight. Starting at 8 with New York Tonight, we'll explore the latest news developments, followed by New York One at 10 to wrap up your day. So join me each weeknight starting at 8 right here on New York One.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. This Ramadan looks a lot different for Mayor Mamdani, who is balancing his faith and his role as our city's mayor. That means fasting while maintaining his busy City Hall schedule. And within the hallways of City Hall, some Muslim staffers are excited to be fasting for the holy month at a time when the city has a Muslim mayor. Our Noorleen Kawaja stopped by City Hall during the first day of Ramadan, and she joins me now with her report. Good evening, Noorleen.
Good evening, Bobby. So the excitement is palpable in City Hall, but Ramadan is really a month that you observe, but I like the way that one Muslim staffer put it, and she said this is a moment of celebration because of the representation at the top. There is a sense of pride and excitement among some who are new to City Hall and those who've been around for decades.
Zunaira Ahmed says she's filled with gratitude every time she walks up the steps to the city council's chambers. The 30-year-old Brooklynite who was born in Pakistan came to the city when she was just 2 and has been working for the city council for 2 years, currently as a senior advisor to Speaker Julie Menon.
Being an immigrant and a daughter of immigrants, it just fills my heart that I have made it so far.
And she's going back to her roots this month by fasting. During Ramadan, the holy month when Muslims go without food and drink every day from just before sunrise to sunset.
There is a beautiful buzz every Ramadan between us Muslim staffers, but I think this year it's especially unique. We are at historic times where there's Muslim New Yorkers in every corner of public service, including the mayor's office.
Muslim staffers in the mayor's office, like Abdul Nasser Rod, a lifelong New Yorker who worked in the de Blasio administration, is back in government, this time working on criminal justice and public safety issues as a policy advisor to the first deputy mayor.
Ramadan and fasting is not new to City Hall or city employees at all.
but definitely more visibility on the top, which is exciting.
Queens resident Alia Latif is also going without water and food during the day. She's been working in city government for more than a decade and is just a few weeks in as the mayor's executive director of the Office of Faith-Based Partnerships at the mayor's Office of Mass Engagement.
I want to make sure that in quiet solidarity, in reflection and connection, that I'm using this month to be sure that I'm my best self, whether it's at work, for community, and elsewhere.
And Mir Bashar has called City Hall home for nearly 3 decades. He started here before the Giuliani administration, even before the 9/11 terror attacks and the anti-Muslim sentiment that followed.
We were never recognized. We are not in that category. Basically, that time we were minority, so I don't remember that I was asked for how is the fasting.
He worked his way up from an analyst to a chief administrative officer. The Bronx resident is now serving and fasting during his 5th administration.
It feels good. We know that we have people are fasting, so we know people understand what is fasting about, what is Ramadan about.
We should never have to cower or be afraid, but I think with, kind of the new mayor and the historic election that it was, it's given us a lot of things to be prideful of. So I'm full of gratitude and I'm full of pride.
Pride in being an observant Muslim in a city now run by a Muslim. They say they're working to help all New Yorkers. The mayor is planning to have an iftar or break his fast with the FDNY next week on March 4th in Manhattan, Bobby.
So you got a lot of access going inside City Hall, both on the mayor's side and with some of the city council staff. What is it like being in there in the halls of?
Well, I was looking around for some of those decorations, right, on display that a Muslim household might have during Ramadan. They weren't there, but the feeling is there, right, Bobby? So a lot of non-Muslim colleagues wishing their Muslim colleagues happy Ramadan or Ramadan Mubarak. And so that's commonplace now, I would say, in a lot of workplaces where folks are fasting. But there's certainly a deeper level of understanding of what Muslim colleagues are doing when it comes to the fasting, and a feeling among some that this Ramadan is special. It's got a more special meaning to know that the leader at the top represents them. So they really feel it inside. They've got fasting going on, and they're also doing their work duties without food, water, coffee, whatever it is, and they're thinking, okay, the leader at the top is also doing the same thing, right?
Right. You mentioned the mayor's doing an iftar with firefighters next week. What else is he doing during this Ramadan?
So this is all part of an effort by the administration, for the mayor to spend time with everyday New Yorkers during this month, including breaking fast at a local restaurant, wherever he is, whenever the sun goes down, right? He's got a busy schedule, so wherever he is and the sun's going down, that's where he's breaking his fast. And on the first day, he broke his fast at a halal cart in Astoria on Steinway. And just this week, with the blizzard we saw, Mayor Mamdani shared a pre-dawn meal with the city's Department of Sanitation's Muslim workers. So the mayor is doing this sort of continued outreach to Muslim communities across the city, and that's all a part of Ramadan, right? It's about coming together, being in community, being in solidarity, and the city, again, the fabric of Muslims across our city. You've got Africans, South Asians, Arabs, and others, Black Muslims as well. So the mayor really is spending time as he can this month with members of those communities.
All right, very interesting stuff, New Orleans. Thank you so much for that report. It is time now for a break. Coming up, we are a little over an hour away from President Trump's State of the Union address. I'll talk about what New Yorkers should look out for with former White House speechwriter Michael Waldman. Stay with us.
We have so many ways to stay connected. A single touch can bring us closer to the families we love, the friends we know, and the city we share. And Spectrum helps us keep connected throughout the day, every day. Including more ways to watch New York One as a Spectrum Internet customer. Watch Spectrum News New York One on the Spectrum News app, available on all your favorite devices.
I don't know if the world knows this, but kids are expensive. And when we found out we were pregnant, of course, we were looking for any ways to slash bills.
And making sure
We only had what we needed so that everything was less stressful.
And saving money with our internet bill really helped us out a lot. Came to Spectrum because we were with AT&T before, and Spectrum just had better deals.
That money we saved with Spectrum just added to what we could repurpose for our daughter.
Real customers, real savings. To see how much you can save, visit spectrum.com/save.
Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day. With in-depth coverage of the day's news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Tomorrow, some morning sunshine possible. Clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on One. Weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum and Xfinity customers.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. In a little more than an hour, President Trump addresses a joint session of Congress in his first State of the Union address since returning to the White House more than a year ago. Trump is expected to focus on immigration and to tout his agenda ahead of the critical midterm election year as Democrats look to take back control of Congress. But several Democratic lawmakers are planning to skip out on the speech, and Virginia's newly sworn-in Governor Abigail Spanberger will deliver the Democratic Party's official rebuttal. Joining me now to talk more about what to expect is somebody who knows a thing or two about all of this. Michael Waldman was the chief White House speechwriter for 4 State of the Union speeches. He is also the president and CEO of the Brennan Center for Justice at NYU Law School. Welcome back to the program. Thank you for joining me.
Great to be with you.
So you have actually written these things, State of the Union speeches, under President Clinton.
That's right. I have PTSD from the experience that comes up around once a year, like at a moment like this.
So what is it like? Is there added pressure crafting a speech like this? And is the intended audience different from a typical presidential speech?
You know, the State of the Union address is actually in the Constitution. It doesn't say you have to give it in person, but it is the first thing that the president is required to do. And it is even now a huge audience. People say, oh, it's past its prime. They just should do it on video or a PowerPoint. But last year, Trump gave one of these speeches and he had 36 million people. So you have a big audience of the country. You also have the Congress sitting in front of you. And presidents are aware of what they say, how the Democrats are going to react, how the Republicans are going to react. And it's a chance to urge legislation. It's a chance to try to set a tone. And we'll see whether Donald Trump, in this very unusual moment for him, how he handles it. There's a lot more of a question mark than usual.
Right. And talk about that. Why such an unusual moment? Because, I mean, Trump, at any time in his either in his first term or second term, has never been a typical politician, never given a typical speech. What are you looking for tonight that might be different?
The big thing about him is he's not invincible. He is, it is very clear, a lame duck. He's not running again. His power is ebbing away bit by bit. But he's also trying to govern by fiat and doing all these things that people like me say verge on authoritarian. And so there's been a real public rebuke in a lot of ways. His approval ratings are really low. The most recent Washington Post poll said 60% of the public disapproves of his performance as president. There's been a recoil from the conduct of ICE in Minneapolis and elsewhere. And he's appearing before Congress, where just a few weeks ago, he tried to arrest 6 members of Congress for constitutionally protected speech that they had made. And it was so outrageous that a grand jury refused to do the indictment, which, you know, doesn't happen very often. So he's both going to try to come in as somebody who is dominating the room, but the fundamentals are not so strong. And the public thinks he has not been focusing on affordability, inflation, the economy, the way They want him and any other president to focus.
How do you think Trump and these types of speeches, State of the Union speeches, are different now than when you were writing this? I mean, obviously, we're in a very different political environment, much more polarized and partisan. And, you know, let's be honest, Donald Trump is probably going to say a lot of things that are just flat out false in this speech, and that maybe that wasn't always the case.
So Bill Clinton was, in the speeches, fastidious about getting everything right, endlessly double-checking, fact-checking, and when you're doing a State of the Union speech, if you do it in the traditional way, every word can mean billions of dollars. The difference between something is a priority or the priority, think about it, can be a lot of money in the budget. Trump, as you say, he just sort of, I would argue, lies all the time, and it's going to be a challenge for the Democrats or others. What do they respond to? We know that he's going to claim, for example, oh, immigrants are committing all this crime. It's just not true. Immigrants actually have a lower crime rate than the rest of the country. He is, we know, going to push for voting legislation that would restrict voting, claiming, oh, the election was rigged in 2020, claiming misconduct. That's also not true. So that's one of the challenges, is you know, it's an interesting thing. The Constitution, when it orders there to be a State of the Union, says the purpose of it is for the president to make recommendations to Congress about what legislation they ought to consider. And that's usually what presidents do, is to try to get stuff passed. He wants to govern by fiat. He wants to govern by executive action. Other than this voting bill, he doesn't really have much of a legislative agenda. So that's another way it's going to be not your usual State of the Union.
Well, talking about the voting bill, I mean, that's one of the big concerns from Democrats in particular, that the president is, you know, going to try to muddle the midterm election results this year. And does he begin to lay the groundwork for that now?
I think very much so. And it's actually something that's increasingly getting his own supporters very stirred up. At the Brennan Center, we are working very intensely on this. There really is a concerted campaign by the president and his administration to undermine the election, even though our elections are free and fair and secure. And this legislation is called the SAVE Act. It passed the House of Representatives. It would require you to produce a passport or a birth certificate to register to vote in the United States. And that's something that our research shows 21 million people just don't have ready access to those documents. So it would really be the most restrictive voting bill, I think, that Congress will ever have passed. What he is going to call for them to do is to bring it to the floor of the Senate and what's called a talking filibuster. So we all think of Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, the filibusters where senators are on the floor of the Senate talking endlessly. That's kind of not how it's done anymore. Now, in order to bring up a bill, if someone says, you know, I want to filibuster it, for convenience, they say, oh, okay, right. We're going to pretend you just filibustered it, and you need 60 votes to stop the filibuster. They're going to try to make the Democrats actually hold the floor and talk. That could backfire, though, because Democrats then have control of the floor, and they can talk about anything. They can bring up health care. They could read the Epstein files out loud. So it's not any fun for the other senators either.
Right. All right, we're going to have to leave it there. Michael Waldman of the Brennan Center for Justice, thank you so much for your insight. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Be sure to join Spectrum News at 8:55 tonight to watch the State of the Union address. Errol Lewis is hosting special live coverage. And that is going to do it for tonight's show. Thanks for watching, everybody, and have a great evening. We will see you the next time on Inside City Hall.
Going into the 2026 election, local races will determine national policy, from the economy to public safety. From the governor's race to the balance of power in Washington, this year's ballot has no shortage of important choices. Let Spectrum News New York One be your resource for balanced, up-to-date coverage and analysis, so you can know what the issues are and how they impact your community. Always dedicated, always local, always on. Decision 2026 on Spectrum News New York One.
This is a very special place. It is a place where we like to think we make memories.
We have the capacity for nearly 20,000 people in the arena.
Working at a building like this, we have access to so many resources. It's about utilizing the tools that we have to be able to create those memories for our partners, for our fans, and for anybody who steps into this building. At the end of the game, they're going to leave here feeling like they enjoyed the experience, enjoyed the game, and that's what we're here for.
A venue like this has a lot of moving parts, but at its heart, it has its technology backbone.
Spectrum powers scoreboards, ticketing, point of sales. They also provide a highly secure network that takes care of fan security,